And welcome guys to another little tutorial for expanding into our little shooter kit that we have going on. Well, I would consider it more of an abstract uh, classes, kind of like a little framework to expand upon, but I guess it's all on what you guys decide to call it. So we're in here in our little project and stuff, and I've done some expanding on the light gunner class. I figured we'll have to go very slowly and expand upon each grip in detail. So there'll be several videos that'll probably just be light weapon manager dot light gunner dot heavy gunner dot something. That way you can see how we build upon each weapon in such a way that it will be perfectly fine. Now, in our last video and things like that, we actually have this little rifle script right here, which is in the next video. I really don't want to discuss this right now because it's still kind of in development stage. But I'll show you how the workflow will work in this kit. That way you can use it in maybe some other project that you have. Maybe it'll give you an idea to do something completely different with a weapon that you may not have thought of before. So this weapon right here is, it's got all its basic stuff, and we've only got one here, but we have a weapon transform, which usually is where I put my camera for the weapons. If you use a 2-point system for weapons, like one's for just the weapon to render, and then the rest is the environment. But that's all up in how you want to set it. Now, there's a new script right here, player events slotted. I named it slotted because I have multiple things in this project right here, but this script right here what it's designed to do is capture the inputs itself. Basically, it's like an input class, but it's designed around delegates. Now, if you don't know what a delegate is, then I suggest you go into my channel and look at, I believe I have a video on just delegates, but what they are is, imagine a variable where you can stuff void calls into it. So basically, when you call the delegate itself one time, every single thing that listens to the delegate will get called. And that's basically what a button in the Unity event system is. It's a delegate. This is just a Unity event, but you stuff a delegate in, and then it can call this. You see how we got .save right here? Well, if we wanted to put something else in here, we just do, blah, 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 and then add another thing, and so on and so forth, and just keep going. This is basically what a delegate is. You have this variable right here, button, and then you're going to call this on click. So the on click event thing will be called, and it will do all these functions right here that we put, which is fine for us. That's what this is designed to do. That's basically what a delegate is. It's a variable that can hold all the void calls that you want. I mean, don't go crazy with it like some 500 thing or something crazy, but that's basically its job. So in our player event slotted, that's what it does. But we are going to talk about our other type classes, as in this class right here, running. We are going to swap over, and we are going to discuss how this workflow is going to go for the running. Okay, now this is our running class. Very simple. This is the start method. Okay. And we're calling the base.start, which is fine. I mean, I pretty much believe it's empty on the basic player. Go to declaration, start. Yep, it's empty. And I made this an abstract class so people can't, so it's designed to be overwritten or called the base version of it. It's kind of like how we do a variable character controller. This is a class, and then we call functions inside the class. Same concept. Okay, so we got speed, adjust speed, and we call it to false because this is the start of our program. I don't think it should basically go into the state of running right off the bat. So our speed, it calls this function. Well, speed, false. Okay, so it's doing false, and then we are getting the float. Now you're probably like, why don't we just call this directly right here? In the past we have, but see, the reason why we're not now is because we're using a delegate to adjust our speed. Okay, and a delegate has to have a void call in it. It cannot accept a return type. Okay, it's looking for something of this nature. Void, boom, with a. Now, when you call something with it, with the version of the delegate, the overload right here must match. Okay, so when we are doing an event call from our delegate, it must have a bool start, or, you know, this bool variable right here for the overload. It must have this. Okay, true or false, and that's it. It must match. Okay, so we do that. We make sure that we are walking. Okay, on the first. Then I decided not to pull a reference for this and just do a get component call and then assign variables, because this is the only time that I need this to be here. So after this right here gets called and the start is done, the garbage collector will garbage collect this stuff. It doesn't care about this stuff anymore, so it releases the memory or whatever internally it's decided to do. Okay, we don't need this variable to be around forever because it's already assigned to its void. Now, in this, our player event is running. This is a function, and we are assigning this to it. We're going plus equals speed. This dot speed. So every single time the event goes is running, true or false, it calls this, and then it adjusts our speed variable. So this base.update, it's only doing what it needs to do. As in the base version, our base version is just doing our basic controlling stuff, you know, doing horizontal and all that. Which we may move this input stuff in here because, well, yeah, we probably will be moving this horizontal and vertical out of here and putting them in functions again. But I have to make a new delegate for it and stuff. And the reason why I'm doing this is simple. If you have, and this is our event thing, okay, if we decide to do a full body animation thing, then we only have to write this one script that listens to this. If in our animation, we can have it subscribe to this delegate right here. Okay. which if we decide to animate when he puts the gun up to his eyes or up to his head, close to his head, or the hip position or whatever, we can write one script that listens to this stuff. Okay, basically like our running class did. When we adjust this, this is kind of the workflow that we'll go toward for using a delegate. See, and two, when we do another script, we only have to make sure if in the function that we write for aiming, it could be an integer, it doesn't care. We just have to translate it into something that the animator can listen to and adjust to. As in this running right here, this tells us a bool right here. Is he running or walking? Is he aiming? Is he reloading? Okay, and I put keys here so that way in the inspector we can change them. And two, you can always make this a static variable right here and then have a class to adjust your static variable. Okay, so it won't be that you have to do something really crazy in order to change the inputs. All you'd have to do is write a script to adjust inputs, or just do find object of type this and use the script or the events from the UI system to do this, because this is nothing but an enum. Okay, so any type of pull down menu that Unity has for the UI, it would be able to go, hey, let's just rebind it to something else. The only thing the actual scripts here are caring about is listening. So this function right here, whatever we want it to do, we can put speed dot divided by 2 and everything else. We could put a whole bunch of code right here in here to do lots of other stuff. It's not bound to what we want. Okay. This right here is kind of like the crossroads to do what we want. And I hope that makes sense, because we're just doing speed and have it do the adjust speed, but it's the delegate from our little event system here that calls it. It tells it, hey, do this. Hey, the input is down, so do this. Okay, and it's one script. And the beauty of this is we can have multiple things listening to this event. So anytime this is called, we can also have it call another scripts function in it too. All it has to do is subscribe like the base class does. Like this right here, all it has to do is subscribe to this. Okay, this function right here must have a bool, because that's what the is running is. It's a function for bools. Okay, it calls a void call with a bool as the overload. So it requires you to have something like this: void blah bool, and you could call it whatever you want here. You can call it whatever you want here, but this is where it goes speed to this. And I hope that makes sense, because you're just basically assigning. You don't do this like a function call. You're just making it listen for it. Okay, now a little tip: if you're going to write something like this, you see how this plus equals right here is? This right here? This is a the standard C# delegate from system.delegate. Okay, if you mess up and you don't know what's going on, it's probably because you did this. Okay, now there is a trick to get away from that, from doing it equals, because here's the problem with the equals. Okay, this subscribes to it, but you go into something else that's subscribed, like I don't think I got another one actually. Actually, right here. Here's a good example. Okay, see how this has got plus equals, then this is plus equals, this is plus equals, plus equals. If you had equals in here, it would only have this right here. Like if you took this out and go like this is the only thing that will be called. All this right here that you assign will go straight in the crapper. So be careful when you do this, but I do have a solution to make sure that you don't do that. Okay, so let's go into our event system here, our little events, and this is a delegate, right? No problem, we've established that. But there is another version of it which is called an event. Okay, this right here, does it go before or after? Pretty sure you can do that. Or do I get the wrong version of it? Oh no, actually, is it this? Yeah, it's this. We change our variable that's publicly accessible through them, okay, and we put an event. Okay, and what will happen on this is simple. This is now a C# event, okay, which has been gone over and over and over before, but I'll show you in 1 second. I'm going to save. Okay, you see how we did this before and we can do plus equals? I can no longer go equals. It will not let me completely overwrite the delegate. Okay, it will only allow me to add listeners or remove listeners. This is by code. Now the reason why I won't do the Unity event system itself is because it's another class with different variations. Okay, so there could be some overhead. You know, I mean, granted, there's probably is some overhead, but the problem with using Unity's version of it is it's an entire different class. You'd be instantiating a different object in its entirety, which I'm sure is fine, but C#'s version of the delegate event or otherwise could be less overhead because of it's pretty much part of system. Okay, it's not a subclass version. Okay, like Unity's event system might not be as performant as the system version of events through code, because I'm sure that Unity's version of the delegates with the events and stuff like that you're used to for buttons, it's got some type of overhead because there's comparison, there's it's their version of it for the engine. Okay, it's not from, because they're probably using delegates, you know, generated by code and then calling it. It's probably the same thing, but there's a little bit more overhead because it's their version of it. Unity's event system has not been around like super long time. Like there hasn't been a really big time optimization for it compared to the regular C version of it. Okay? And I hope that makes sense. Because there might be some serious optimizations that they may need for the Unity event system. Because we may decide to do something like this, okay? And to write a delegate like this, all you'd have to do is go public delegate. And delegate is part of the... Is it not part of this? I was pretty sure it was part of system. It's probably collections. But I know it's somewhere in there. All I have for this is collections and engines, so you may not need anything to do a delegate. Oh, no. I'm ahead of myself here. Void, and then public delegate void, because you're basically calling a function, because that's basically what it is. But it's kind of like a pointer function. So you do a public delegate void, and then you give it a name. So in this case, I am going to go in here to my basic player right here and go to declaration and grab this horizontal. Okay, that's all I really wanted. I'm going to call this horizontal, and then you need your braces. Okay, so what are we going to do? I want it to be a float. I'm going to call this horizontal again, but in the overload part right here, I'm going to put a lowercase h, so that way the compiler can compile and do just fine. Now we're going to do our public event, okay, and then we need a name, which I'm going to call it horizontal again, but this time instead of doing that, I want this right here. And it should be fine. Oh, no. You have to have this. Okay. This and this has to be the same. Now I can do a horizontal. I keep forgetting that. Well, I don't really forget. I try to think about stuff that's further. You know, my actual thinking goes faster than my speaking. It's just the way it is. So now we've done a horizontal right here. So you're probably like, well, why do we want to do this, sir? Simple. Go into our public running here, and in our basic player, which we don't really have to do or anything crazy, I want to do this. Okay, we have our update, and the way we would do something like this is is this gonna be one of those? I guess it'll be fine. Well, we probably should put it in the slotted player. Yeah, let's just... Actually, let's do it in the run part, since we're doing this get component stuff. So I'm going to pack this... Well, actually, no, this is going to be really cool, because this is a good point to put in this. We're going to go star region. and it would pop up any other time. That's dumb. Ah well, we're gonna give us some space. Now I like to keep stuff kind of a little bit organized. This is something for the event system right here. So in here I'm going to go public virtual void, and then we're going to call it horizontal. Yeah, and then it has to take a float. Okay, and it's basically a function. Okay, so and we have to give it a name, which I'm going to make it another horizontal, but lowercase, and I'm going to put it like this because I really don't want it to be modified. I kind of use this little thing right here a lot of times for stuff that I know I don't want to modify. I just want to use it. Okay, now there's several ways of doing something like that, but that's what we want. That's what I use for my workflow. So now we have this. Well, we don't have a variable for horizontal. Okay, so we're going to go float horizontal h values. Okay, and or equals 0 f, so the compiler doesn't complain that you have unassigned values, which is kind of weird, but whatever. So h values equals horizontal. Okay, and you're like, that it? Really? Seriously? Not yet, but what every time this is called, it's going to adjust this. Now what's really cool about this is if we wanted to do something like this, like mathf dot lerp, okay, and use two floats like h values and lerp it to horizontal, and then a float term. Okay, and you can use that to add smoothing, some acceleration, you know, whatever the case that it is for you. I mean, you could do that, which may be something that you want. I mean, it's totally up to you. But to assign this and get the values from the event system, all we have to do is go down to here, temp event, because that's what our variable that we use to get the event system. That's what it's called. And then we go dot horizontal, okay, and it's right here, okay, plus equals this script right here, dot, not h values, but the horizontal function. Okay, the horizontal function right here is where you'd be getting at, and you just, there you go. And that is it. That is how you call and get values from our event system. Like, see, this right here takes a float. So let's go into our event system. Let's do something. Okay, in our event system, we can get keybinds and stuff. Well, we're going to go in here and go else if input dot, it's not a key, it's a axis. Yes. Okay, and is the axis? Oh, yeah, actually it is horizontal. The string value thing. Okay. It returns a float. Oh yes, that's right. That's right. I'll have to do something like this because this is this returns a float because it's kind of a return type. It returns your horizontal. So instead of doing like this weird stuff, we are actually going to call the event directly. Okay, we're going to go horizontal. Actually, is it horizontal? Yeah, horizontal. And it'll be fine with this in a minute. Horizontal and closing braces. Because it's a return type, this to the computer just basically gives it a float. So this is technically a float right here. So every single frame, we call this function because this is an update, okay? And we just give it the float. Because remember what return types are is in weapon.run. This is basically what Unity is doing. It goes float and we give it a string and then it returns something. It always returns something. 0 to 1 to 10 to 100. I think it's 0.00 or just 0 by itself, and then it accelerates up to 1. But don't quote me on that because I usually clamp the value between 0 and 1 anyway. So in our event system that we have right here, we now have the horizontal every single frame being called to this. But there's a getcha for this, okay? For when it comes to calling something like this, the reason why I remember I need an else if is this reason right here. Else if horizontal does not equal null. And the reason why you need this check is because every single frame you're doing this, okay? But if nothing is subscribed to the event, then you get a null reference and it starts bugging out on you and it's not so cool. Which, you know, is no problem, but you have to have just something listening. See, the reason why I don't have all kinds of null checks in most of this right here is because I know I'm always going to have a when this start runs, it will never be null because I'm always subscribing to it. Now you're probably like, what's the weapon manager subscribing to these kind of variables? Okay, which is a good question. One that I do believe we should address in the next video, or Thursday or Friday, something like that. Because 30 minutes is long enough for showing you guys how to use an event system like this and, you know, calling it, subscribing to it, why we're using it is very simple. Okay, take my gun, take our weapon manager script. For some reason, it needs a horizontal. Well, okay, that's cool. So let's just give it a horizontal. And the usual workflow is we would type in a reference to the event system, probably, and then get a horizontal, right? Get. And we would have all these references to an input system, input, and all these get components. And I'm like, why do we need this? Why do this? This seems crazy. Okay? Because of it just seems nuts, because instead of this script right here that just gets it from the event system, I would have a reference to the event system, then every single frame compare that float to another float, or just put it hard code it into the class itself. That kind of stinks, because this class, if I did it the usual way where everybody else does instead of the event system, I would have the input system hard coded into the script every single time. As in, every script that needs the horizontal will have an input variable. Every one of them. Well, it's kind of a bummer, because if I wanted to take this script out, out of this project and go to the next one, I'll need some scripts, okay? Which isn't too bad, I guess. You need slot 1, or just, write something different for it, okay? You'll need the event system, okay, that's reasonable. Okay, that's 2. You might need a 3rd here. But the reason why I don't want a variable right here is because I don't want to drag more than I have to in here. And I hope that makes sense. Because, and the reason why I'm doing this.aim in the weapon manager script is, okay, look right here. We got this changing variable, aiming, walking, close, fire variables, which is a bool, and reload. Okay? If I wanted another script, well, see, to get the variables from the event system, I'd much rather do a little simple function and have a variable up here like a float, and then just have the function here just tell this script what to do. Because when we go to a full body animation, all my stuff that I need to do for the full body animation to work, I don't have to have it interact with my guns or anything else. When it comes to animating, my single script for weapon is going to work with the animation for the gun. When it comes to the full body animation, full body animator, where you see his legs and everything, the full body animations will be driven by a full body animator script. As in, it will do something of this kind. It is aiming, walking, close, fire variables, reload. It's going to use these type of functions right here to tell the animator what to do. And the full body animation script, all it has to do is go player events, boom. Now this variable right here, I don't really actually have to do this, okay? I can not do this. All that I would have to do to get around this is something very, could I do that or not? Actually, I kind of could. Instead of doing something with the event system with subscribing, no, actually I'm not going to do that, because I'm not going to explain that one because it's something that it's used, but it's not widely used because there is some overhead for it. And I'll give you guys a hint on that one. It is called broadcast message. Look that up if you don't want to use a delegate and you just want to call the function directly and tell every game object what to do. Just look up that function, that that API. If you want to get rid of all this right here, you don't have to actually do this. But I will warn you, there's some overhead on it. So that's up to you. But I'm going to let you guys go for this video, and thanks for watching, and I hope that you guys think this is a cool way to go for calling functions and things like that. Now in the next video, I will probably describe how to use this type of functionality in a weapon class. So take care, guys, and appreciate your time, and like, hit, subscribe, and thank you very much. Bye bye.